71% of employees say meetings are a waste of time, and U.S. companies bleed an estimated $259 billion a year on aimless chatter and unused strategy. If you're a business owner, you know where your leaders focus and spend their time matters, not only to their success, but to the business bottom line and goals. So here's the million-dollar question. What if your next quarterly leadership meeting sparked action and momentum instead of a lot of lip service that rarely gets revisited once everyone leaves the room? Today, I'm handing you my tried and tested step-by-step playbook to transform the oftentimes tedious and chaotic quarterly meeting marathons into momentum-making power sessions that move everybody forward. These are the exact 4 exercises I use when I facilitate quarterly leadership meetings for my clients, converting a routine quarterly meeting into a high-trust, high-clarity springboard for success and momentum over the coming quarter. Welcome to the Biz Doctor Podcast, my love letter to business owners the world over. I'm your host, Lauren Goldstein, award-winning business consultant and advisor fondly nicknamed the Biz Doctor by my clients. I help business owners who are burning the candle at both ends diagnose what is actually keeping them buried in the day-to-day busy work, and then formulate a treatment plan to adjust their business and team to fit them, so they can take a breath and a vacation and have more fun making a bigger impact than ever. So grab your favorite beverage and your earbuds and let's dive into our latest episode. I'm so excited to let you copy my notes for how to make your next quarterly leadership meeting not only more impactful, but more collaborative. As you've heard me talk about in previous episodes, one of the most critical, yet highly ignored, parts of a high-performing leadership team is trust. Not to put too fine a point on it, but without trust, your leadership team will never be as impactful as it could be. So this is where I'm going to kick us off today. Most leadership teams skip the human layer and dive straight into the brass tacks of numbers. After all, daylight is burning. For me, I found that to be an ineffective way to kick off the meeting. I like to start the meeting by building vulnerability-based trust. I learned this exercise from Patrick Lencioni, and every time I do it with the team, it's almost like they begin to gel more as a team right before my eyes. Suddenly, people are more empathetic, more understanding, and more collaborative because they have a new layer of trust connecting them. It's very simple, yet profound, and it goes like this. Everyone goes around and tells their name, their birthplace, number of siblings, where they land in the birth order, and one interesting thing or a difficult challenge that they had from their childhood. Now, why I love this is because every time I do this, it's incredible to see the light bulbs going off about why people are the way they are. Now, I don't do this every meeting, but if you haven't done this before, it will open up everyone's eyes and build trust. The truth is that even if your leadership team has worked together for a long time, most of them probably don't know a single part of this for anybody. But this is one of the first steps in how we build trust in the team. The reason that it works is because it gives everyone a common language with which to deepen their relationship with one another. Personal stories allow you to see beyond the role to the human being you're working with. And neuroscience 1-on-1, shared vulnerability spikes oxytocin, a precursor to collaboration. So don't be surprised if your team suddenly has more patience and grace for one another. Bonus, most teams actually start to reference these shares during the day, leading to continued understanding and connectedness. My next favorite team building exercise is around what's working and what isn't within the team. It takes about an hour, give or take, depending on your leadership team size. And it goes like this. Your leaders take about 10 minutes to go through every member of the leadership team that's present and answering the following on their rubric. P.S. If you want a copy of this sheet broken down so you can use it with your team, just go to goldenkeypartnership.com/quarterly. Now, during these 10 minutes, what each member of the team does is they write down one thing that this leader does that makes the team better. The single biggest strength as it pertains to the impact on the group and the company that makes everyone ultimately stronger. Next, they write down one aspect of each person that sometimes hurts the team. Lastly, rate them on each of your core values 1 to 5. Then when everybody has filled out their form for each leader that's present, you'll go around the room sharing their gaps first, then go back around ending on strengths. Now you always want to start with the CEO and then repeating this process for each member of the leadership team. Now, if you are on the receiving end, and for anybody, you can share a brief reaction but not a rebuttal. Simply a reaction if you want, or you can just say thank you and take in what was shared. Now, everyone will get to keep their scorecards, and because of this, I recommend that everyone have the same type of pen to keep a little bit of anonymity. Now, before this exercise, I always remind the team before we get started that feedback, at its core, is neutral. It's really important to set this standard. I like to use the analogy as it relates to feedback. Think of it like a jacket. Try it on, see if it fits. Great. Then this is a growth edge for you. If it doesn't, take it in consideration and ask, who have I been showing up as? What was I doing that caused the team to experience me in this light that generated that feedback? Then here is the key, because feedback without follow through is just annoying lip service. So after everyone has gone, give the team 5 or so minutes to review their scorecards and then go back around the room and ask them to pick one area of growth that was mentioned that they are committed to working on over the next quarter. But don't let them off the hook with just that. Make sure that they have something tangible the team knows and can hold them accountable to make sure they are making progress. Now, the next part is what I like to call your top 5 talents alignment. The thing that all high-performing teams have in common? DNA. No, not actual DNA, but how they're wired. You've heard me say it time and time again. You can train someone on a lot of things, but you can't out-train a bad attitude or make someone something they aren't. In fact, let me go on a slight tangent and share a real-time story with you of just how important knowing the traits you want in a team are and holding that standard high. So I have a client who I've been working with for years, and there are some internal operational challenges that we are tackling head on. And we had identified someone in the team that we thought would be a good person to perhaps shift roles into this operational role. Now, this happened to be a newer person to the company. She's only been at the company for, let's say, about 5 or so months. And part of why I love internally promoting and doing it the right way, which is before you promote anybody, making sure that you've set the right expectations, that they really want the role, that everybody's very, very clear, and also reevaluating the traits necessary for someone to succeed in this role. So it was about a month ago that we had a discussion and tapped this person to be in this role. And everything was going well, or so we thought. And what actually happened is somewhere along the way, this person that had been acting and behaving in a way that was very aligned with the core values of this company, humble, hungry, and smart, suddenly started really acting out of character. There was a lot of frustration being vented. There was a lot of finger pointing, lack of accountability, and it just didn't feel great. And it was starting to ruffle a lot of feathers. So much so that after a particularly heated one-on-one with this person's manager, the manager, who has been with the company for decades, considered turning in their resignation. Needless to say, we had some damage control to do. Now, both the CEO and I really had a moment of reflection of going, what did we miss? And what's interesting is we didn't necessarily miss a lot, but what this transition and getting together all the clarity and accountability and communication illuminated was that perhaps there was a trait and core value mismatch that wasn't as glaring in their role before because it didn't have the level of leadership and integration cross-company. She was much more siloed in a single department. All of that to say, it is so, so important that you and your leadership team are on the same page about your core values and the traits that you want in the team that you are going to hold not only leadership to, but the team as a whole, and especially any new hires. Because this is a great example of somebody who we thought would be a great person for this role and we wanted to transition them. But in fact, the person that we are experiencing is not aligned with the traits, not aligned with the core values, and actually is going to exit the company very soon. We're planning all of that, but we're not willing to allow one rotten apple to start infecting the good apples in the company. And so when you have this clarity and this understanding, it actually will help you retain
higher performing people, those A players that you want, because they know that you are going to stick to your word and maintain those high values and standards instead of tolerating mediocrity. I hope that at least comes and circles back and really puts a fine point on why these traits are important, because 9 times out of 10, issues in the team can be traced back to fuzzy criteria or not holding the line with your standards, which is why it is so very important to always make sure your leadership and team as a whole is in agreement about the non-negotiables. So this is an exercise I actually recommend you do every quarterly, just to make sure that the traits that you had last quarter are still aligned. I like to think of a business as a living, breathing thing. Nothing is truly set in stone. There's always moments of learning and adapting and launching and learning. So make sure that you're coming back to the most important things that are going to have the biggest ripple effects in your team. So now that I've set the stage, let me explain to you how this one goes. You get yourself one of those super sticky easel pads by Post-it, like the ginormous ones. I think they're like 3 foot by 2 foot, and some super, and I mean really sticky Post-it notes. Trust me and learn from me. Do not skimp on this because it will make the exercise so much harder, because no one likes chasing stickies all over the place. So you've got your giant sticky note. You want to draw a line down the middle of this giant sticky note pad with traits we want on one side and traits we don't on the other. Now I want you to give everyone 5 to 7 minutes to write down the traits they want in the team and the ones that they don't want. Or sometimes it's easier to think of traits they want to get rid of. Now it's important they need to put 1 trait per sticky note, and then they can go stick them to the corresponding side. So from there, read all the traits they want out loud that they have put in that column, and then have the group pick their top 5 from the ones that were shared. Then they get to write their top 5 down from those top 5. Again, 1 for each sticky. And then stick them on a new blank page that has the traits we want written across the top. Once everyone has put their top 5 stickies up, now is the time to triage the stickies. Find the ones that say the same or similar thing and group those together. As you go, you'll start to see a trend of what the team is wanting start to take shape. You should see very clearly what the top 5 of the top 5 are. For my clients, it looked a little bit like this: grit, resilience, loyalty, coachability, self-driven, self-motivated, motivated, adaptable, reliable, team player, focused, effective communicator, accountability, adaptable. Some of those are very similar. It ended up that the winners were grit, being coachable, reliable, team player, and being self-motivated. Yours will be different for every team, but those just happen to be the ones that my client's team had decided on. Now, once you have your 5, this is the most important part, so pay attention. Define what each trait means to the company. This includes examples so the team knows when someone is or isn't exhibiting this trait. And then you get to reinforce buy-in from the team and get everyone's commitment to not only hold the current team to these traits, but all new hires moving forward. Why I love this exercise is it makes it crystal clear what the bar is for the team. It also gives everyone a common language and way to hold people accountable and filter out people who do not match. Last but not least, here's an oldie but a goodie, the SWOT exercise. Okay, quick note before I dive into what a SWOT is. I sprinkle the 3 that I just shared a few minutes ago throughout the day. And I actually tend to do the SWOT right after the first exercise when we're doing a 3-part postmortem in the past quarter. I like to sprinkle these in because it gets the team re-engaged and up and about throughout the day. I also typically do the traits before the feedback so people can be listening for the traits everyone agreed on and where the gaps are. It makes it an even deeper exercise that way with more context. Okay, so back to SWOTs. This is all about clarity on what's working, what isn't, awareness around what could impact the business, and thinking outside the box. Now, if you're not familiar with SWOT, here's the breakdown. It stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Strengths: internal advantages we can leverage. Weaknesses: internal gaps that hinder performance. Opportunities: external trends we can exploit. Threats: external risks that could impact us. Now, I also like to do this one on the giant stickies on the wall with Post-its. So I write strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats on 4 separate super sticky easel pad notes and stick them to the wall. Now I have each leader take their sticky pads that I passed out in the beginning and their Sharpie and start writing our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats down. Again, 1 per sticky. Then they go and stick them under the corresponding part of the SWOT. As a side note, the reason I am such a fan of the easel pad and stickies is because it gets people moving and engaging. But more than that, it's much easier for our brains to make connections and spot trends when we use our fine motor skills like this and we can see it in real life versus digitally. Now, again, you're going to start to see trends that this team is pointing out to you. The point of this exercise is we want to find what's working so we can double down on that and do more of that. And figure out what's not working so we can either fix it or stop doing it. A final point on this. It isn't just enough to have the stickies in each areas. You get to look at each quadrant and decide what needs to be a focus for the quarter. Whatever you choose to prioritize or focus on, don't leave that room without defining it, getting clear on what success is for that item, and any types of metrics, interdependencies, or accountabilities that relate to it. Remember, clarity is king. Last but not least, to tie everything in a bow, you get to pick 1 company-wide rock, an individual, what I call pebbles, that all support the big rock in some way. For one of my clients, their big rock happens to be improving retention. So each and every pebble of the leadership team cascades up to that rock, whether it's in training, improvements in ops, recruiting, etc. Make sure you tie back to the big rock by asking, with the successful completion of this pebble, will that help us with our retention goal or with our big rock? With the successful completion of this pebble, will that help us with our big rock? A high impact quarterly isn't about cramming everything into slides that you spend the day reading. It's about trust, candid feedback, aligned standards, strategic clarity, and most importantly, everyone moving in the same direction. Now, I've given you a great foundation of exercises to level up your quarterlies. But if all of this sounds overwhelming or you want an unbiased third party like myself to come in and facilitate your next quarterly meeting like I have for so many of my clients, then pop on over to goldenkeypartnership.com/quarterly and get in touch. And just because I love to make your lives easier, on that page, I'll even share my facilitator cheat sheets and slides with you so you can see exactly how I run the meeting and the flow. So you can plug and play your company stuff in and facilitate the best quarterly meeting yet. Give this framework a go for your next quarterly and see just how fast your team and business start accelerating. I promise your whole team will breathe a sigh of relief and you will run faster when you have the quarterly meetings like this. I know I packed a lot into this episode, so thank you so much for listening in and sticking with me to the end. Be sure to bookmark this episode and re-listen because I shared some golden nuggets that probably have broken your brain in a good way. #sorry not sorry. Of course, if anything I shared sparked something in you or resonated, I'd love to hear about it and for you to share this episode with your fellow business owners. Find me on the interwebs and let's connect. Tag or DM me on Instagram at It's Lauren Goldstein or LinkedIn or wherever you hang out online. Please take a moment and also rate and share our show so it shows up to more people who need to hear it. Lastly, don't forget to subscribe so you're the first to get notified when our next episode is live and ready for your ears. Thanks so much for listening. That's it for this week's episode. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to the Biz Doctor podcast. Now, I like to say that friends don't let friends WebMD your business. So if you're wondering what your next steps could be, here are some options for you. No matter what, head to the show notes or to my website, goldenkeypartnership.com, for some impactful resources to support you getting out from under your business. That's also where you'll find the links to learn more about our services and how we support business owners, just like you, who are ready to make the successful jump from business operator in the trenches to visionary business owner with more freedom and flexibility. All of that info is on our website, so pop on over to learn more or get in touch. goldenkeypartnership.com. Finally, if you love the Biz Doctor podcast, I'd be so grateful if you would share it with your friends and network and give us a 5-star rating or review wherever you listen to your podcast.
An original from Story Studio Network.